You know, one of the most beautiful lessons I've learned in life is this: when you make yourself too available, people stop seeing your value. It sounds harsh, but it's true. We live in a time where everyone wants to be noticed, appreciated, and accepted. We reply instantly, show up always, and give endlessly. And slowly, without realizing it, we begin to teach people to take us for granted. Imagine this: you have a friend who messages you only when they need help. You drop everything, your plans, your rest, your time, just to be there for them. You think that's what good people do, and yes, it's noble. But after a while, when they get used to your instant presence, they stop saying thank you. They start assuming you'll always be there. And one day, when you need them, they're too busy, too distracted, or simply not around. That's when the truth hits you. Not everyone who has access to you deserves it. It's not selfish to protect your time. My friends, it's wise. Because when you're always available, you unintentionally make your presence feel ordinary. Think about oxygen. We breathe it every moment, but we don't appreciate it until it's gone. We forget its value because it's always there. The same happens with people. When you're always saying yes, always showing up, always responding first, people start to think you'll never leave. And that's when they stop valuing your effort. Take another simple example. Have you ever noticed how we love the weekend so much more than weekdays? It's not because Saturday or Sunday are magical days. It's because they're rare. Scarcity creates appreciation. In the same way, when you learn to step back sometimes, to give space, to not always be reachable, you allow others to miss your energy, your kindness, your presence. They begin to realize, whoa, life feels different when this person isn't around. That realization is powerful. It's like your favorite song. When you hear it every single hour, it starts to lose its charm. But when you haven't heard it in a while, and suddenly it plays somewhere, you pause, smile, and feel something deep inside. That's what it means to let people miss you. You become the song they can't forget, not the noise they overlook. And please remember, being less available doesn't mean being rude, cold, or arrogant. It means understanding your worth and creating healthy boundaries. There's a difference between being kind and being a doormat. Kindness is strength with grace. People who truly respect you will never demand constant access to you. They'll value your time and presence because they understand it's precious. Many of us struggle with this because we confuse presence with importance. We think, if I'm always there, they'll never forget me. But here's the irony: the more available you are, the easier it becomes to ignore you. It's not about being seen all the time. It's about being remembered for the right reasons. Let's look at an example from daily life. Think of a teacher who never takes a break, who's always there to help students even after school hours. At first, everyone appreciates them. But over time, students start expecting help as a right, not a privilege. The teacher's efforts fade into routine. But then, when that teacher takes a short leave, suddenly everyone realizes how much they depended on that guidance, that encouragement, that voice. The absence brings awareness. The pause restores respect. The same applies in families, friendships, workplaces, even online. Sometimes, stepping back for a moment gives people a chance to reflect. It's not about playing games, it's about balance. When you stop chasing attention and start cultivating value, you'll notice a shift. The right people will start seeking you out. They'll miss the positivity you brought into their space. They'll remember how you made them feel. The truth is, the world doesn't respect what it gets too easily. We appreciate diamonds not because they're shiny, but because they're rare. So, when you make yourself rare in a world of noise and constant availability, you stand out. You become that calm presence people long for when chaos hits. And this applies even to your own habits. Sometimes, you need to make yourself miss you. Put your phone aside. Step away from constant scrolling, texting, or checking messages. Sit with yourself for a while. Because if you're always available to the world, you'll never be available to yourself. When was the last time you missed your own peace, your own laughter, your own silence? Let them miss you, but not out of manipulation or pride. Let them miss you because you've chosen to honor your worth, because you've decided not to overextend yourself to prove your value, because you've realized that love, respect, and appreciation don't come from constant presence. They come from genuine connection. When you learn to pull back a little, something magical happens. You start attracting the right kind of people. The ones who don't need you every second, but value you every time. The ones who check in not because they need something, but because they truly care. So, don't be afraid to take that step back. Don't feel guilty for not replying instantly or saying no sometimes. You're not being distant, you're being deliberate. You're creating room for people to see your true value. Because one day, they'll notice the silence, they'll realize the laughter is missing, the encouragement is gone, the light feels dimmer, and that's when they'll understand it wasn't your presence that mattered most, it was you. Let them miss the warmth of your words, the calm of your presence, the joy of your company. Let them miss what they once took for granted, because when they do, they won't just remember you, they'll respect you. And that's the secret. My friends, don't be too available. Be memorable. Don't always show up. Stand out. Let your absence be the quiet reminder of your value, and your presence, when it happens, will feel like a gift the world can't wait to receive. There comes a point in life when you must choose peace over people, and that choice doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-aware. Too often, we stay in circles that drain our energy just because we don't want to lose people. We hold on to relationships that no longer feel right, keep conversations alive that no longer make sense, and show up in places where our presence is no longer valued. Why? Because we fear being alone. But sometimes, walking away isn't about giving up. It's about growing up. Think about it. Have you ever stayed in a friendship where you were the only one making the effort? You always text first, always plan the meet-ups, always check in to see how they're doing. But when you stop for a while, everything goes silent. No message, no call, just emptiness. And suddenly you realize it wasn't friendship, it was you doing all the work. In that moment, you face a painful truth. Not everyone you lose is a loss. Walking away doesn't mean you don't care anymore. It means you care enough about yourself to not let someone keep breaking your peace. You see, when someone constantly disrespects your time, your emotions, or your worth, and you still keep showing up, you teach them how little they need to give to keep you. And that's not love, that's self neglect disguised as loyalty. There's a difference between patience and permission. Patience is waiting for things to get better. Permission is allowing someone to keep hurting you while you wait. At some point, you must say, enough. Because every time you stay in a place where you're not respected, you send a message to the universe that you're okay with being treated that way. And life, my friends, has a funny way of repeating lessons you refuse to learn. Let me share a simple story. There was once a gardener who loved his plants deeply. Every day, he would water them, clean them, and speak to them with care. But one day, he noticed a plant that had stopped growing. It looked dull and lifeless, no matter how much attention he gave it. After weeks of trying, the gardener realized something. It wasn't the plant's fault. It was the soil. It had lost its nutrients. So, with a heavy heart, he moved the plant to a different pot, with fresh soil and sunlight. Within days, it started blooming again. We are like that plant. Sometimes, the problem isn't us, it's the environment we're trying to grow in. You can give your best, love deeply, and try endlessly. But if the space you're in doesn't nourish you, you will wilt. Walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you realized you deserve healthier soil. It takes courage to walk away. It's easier to stay and complain than to leave and rebuild. It's easier to blame others for not changing than to take responsibility for your own happiness. But remember this, when you walk away from chaos, you walk toward clarity. You make space for peace to enter. You make room for better connections, for people who see your worth without you having to prove it every time. In daily life, you see this everywhere. The employee who keeps tolerating a toxic boss because our job is a job. The friend who stays in a circle of gossip just to not be left out. The person who keeps giving chances to someone who never apologizes. The truth is, the more you tolerate disrespect, the less respect you have for yourself. Respect starts within. When you value yourself enough to leave, you teach others how to treat you. Walking away is not an act of weakness. It's an act of wisdom. It's saying, I've learned what I needed to learn here, and now I must move on. Because some chapters aren't meant to last forever. You can love someone deeply and still let them go. You can be grateful for what was and still choose peace over pain. You can forgive someone without keeping them in your life. Have you ever noticed how peaceful it feels after a storm ends? The air feels lighter. The sky looks clearer. That's what happens inside you when you walk away from something toxic. The storm was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to teach you to build better shelters. Sometimes, silence is stronger than words. You don't need to shout, I'm done. You don't need to post quotes or make grand exits. Just stop showing up where you're not appreciated. Withdraw quietly. Distance yourself respectfully. Let your absence speak the truth your words never could. Because the people who truly care will notice. And the ones who never did, well, they were never yours to begin with. Think of your life like a book. Not every character stays until the end. Some leave after a few chapters, and that's okay. If you keep holding on to characters who have served their purpose, you'll never meet the new ones waiting in the next pages. So don't be afraid to turn the page. Don't be afraid to let go. Don't be afraid to start again. I know it hurts to walk away. It hurts to detach from what once made you smile. But sometimes pain is the price of peace. And if you have to choose between someone who keeps breaking you and the silence that helps you rebuild, you already know the answer. One day, you'll look back and realize why certain doors had to close. You'll understand that peace was waiting on the other side of goodbye. And that moment, my friends, will feel like breathing again after being underwater for too long. So, if you're holding on to something or someone that no longer feels right, ask yourself, am I staying because it's healthy or because I'm afraid? Because if it's fear keeping you there, you're not living, you're surviving. And you deserve more than that. Walk away with love, not anger. Walk away with gratitude for the lessons, not resentment for the pain. Walk away not because you want to prove them wrong, but because you want to do right by yourself. Because in the end, walking away doesn't make you heartless, it makes you whole. And when you choose peace over approval, silence over chaos, and self-respect over pleasing others, you won't have to chase happiness anymore. It will naturally find you right where peace lives. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can say is absolutely nothing. Silence has a strength that words can never match. In a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, trying to prove a point, defend themselves, or explain their side of the story, silence has become rare, and because it's rare, it's valuable. There's a deep wisdom in knowing when to speak and when to simply stay still. Because silence, my friends, is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of understanding. You see, not every situation in life deserves your reaction. Not every person who misunderstands you deserves an explanation. Not every argument needs to end with you being right. There's freedom in realizing that peace is more important than proving a point. Sometimes silence doesn't mean you've lost. It means you're wise enough to stop fighting battles that no longer matter. Let me tell you something simple, but profound. Silence reveals truth louder than noise ever can. Think about when someone hurts you, and instead of arguing back, you choose to stay quiet. That quietness isn't weakness, it's dignity, it's the sound of self-respect. Because when you stop explaining, you start teaching. You teach others that your worth doesn't need defending. You teach yourself that your peace is more precious than their approval. There's a story I once heard about a man who was falsely accused of something he didn't do. People in his town gossiped, pointed fingers, and spoke behind his back. He could have shouted, argued, or fought to clear his name. But instead, he remained calm and said, "Time will speak for me." And you know what? It did. Over time, the truth surfaced, and his silence became his greatest defense. He didn't need to win the argument. He just needed to stay still long enough for truth to do its work. That's the beauty of silence. It's not about ignoring problems. It's about trusting the process. Sometimes, silence is saying, I let peace handle what pride cannot. You see, when you react out of anger, you give others control over your emotions. But when you stay silent, you stay in control of yourself. It's not suppression, it's selection. You're choosing what deserves your voice and what doesn't. Think about everyday life. Someone criticizes you on social media. Your instinct is to fire back, to prove them wrong, to defend yourself. But what happens when you don't? When you let your silence be the answer? It unsettles people. Because silence is powerful, it makes others reflect on their own noise. You're not feeding the drama, you're starving it. Or imagine a workplace where a colleague tries to provoke you, spreading rumors, or taking credit for your work. You could argue, confront, or complain, but sometimes your best move is quiet excellence. Keep doing your job, keep being kind, keep shining, because nothing silences gossip faster than success. Silence, in this sense, isn't passive, it's purposeful. It says, you can talk, I'll act. Let's see whose voice lasts longer. Even in relationships, silence can heal more than words. Have you ever noticed how, in heated arguments, words start losing meaning? We say things we don't mean. We hurt the people we love, and later we regret it. But when one person chooses silence, not out of arrogance, but out of love, it creates space to think, space to breathe, space to listen, and often that space is where healing begins. There's a reason why monks, saints, and wise people value silence so much. Because when you stop talking, you start hearing the voice within, the whisper of intuition, the guidance of peace. Silence allows you to reconnect with yourself. It's in silence that clarity is born. The answers we chase in noise often reveal themselves in stillness. But let's be honest, silence isn't easy. It takes strength to stay quiet when every part of you wants to react. It takes maturity to listen when you want to be heard. It takes faith to trust that what's meant for you will never require you to scream for it. Yet, once you master silence, life becomes calmer. You stop explaining your value to those who are determined not to see it. You stop chasing closure from people who never gave you clarity. You stop wasting words on those who've already made up their minds. Think of silence like water. When you stir it, it becomes muddy. You can't see through it. But when you let it settle, it becomes clear. Your mind works the same way. The more you react, the more confusion you create. But when you allow silence, your thoughts settle, and suddenly you can see what truly matters. There's a story about two monks walking through a forest. They came across a woman who couldn't cross a muddy river. One monk carried her across and continued walking. Hours later, the other monk said, "You shouldn't have carried that woman. Our vows forbid it." The first monk smiled and said, "I put her down hours ago, brother. Why are you still carrying her?" That's what silence does. It helps you let go. It teaches you not to carry every word, every insult, every wound with you. Some things are best released quietly. In daily life, you'll find that silence protects you from unnecessary chaos. You don't need to explain why you're choosing peace. You don't need to justify why you've stopped talking to someone who constantly drains you. Your silence will say everything, because silence is not empty, it's full of answers. And when people misunderstand your silence, remember, only those who are loud inside can handle calm. The ones who truly know you will feel your silence more deeply than your words. They'll understand that it's not distance, it's discernment. So the next time you feel tempted to argue, to prove, to defend, pause, take a deep breath. Let silence do the talking. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can say is nothing at all. And when you master that, you'll realize that peace doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from walking away from them with your dignity intact. Your silence doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It shows that you've learned that not everything deserves your energy. And one day, those who doubted you will look back and realize the quietest person in the room was the one who understood the most. There comes a time in everyone's life when the noise outside becomes too loud, when opinions, expectations, and responsibilities pull us in every direction. And in that chaos, something inside whispers quietly, take a step back. That whisper is not weakness, it is wisdom. It's life's way of telling you that growth doesn't always happen in the crowd. Sometimes it happens in isolation. We live in a world where being alone is often misunderstood. People see solitude and think sadness. They see silence and think loneliness. But in truth, solitude is not emptiness. It is the space where you meet yourself again. Isolation is not a punishment, it is preparation. Every flower blooms alone before it's admired by the world. Every great tree first grows roots in the dark before it ever touches the sky. The same is true for us. When life pulls you away from people, places, or routines you're used to, don't fight it. Sometimes that distance is divine design. It's life's way of saying you've been giving too much of yourself to the world. Now, come home to you. Because when you're always surrounded by noise, you forget the sound of your own thoughts. You start living by what others expect instead of what your heart truly wants. Think about a seed. Before it becomes a tree, it must be buried in darkness. It has to go through pressure, silence, and time. There are no claps, no audience, no light. Just quiet growth happening beneath the surface. And yet, that's the most important part of its journey. Because without that lonely stage of development, it would never have the strength to break through the soil and face the world. You may feel buried right now, but maybe you're not buried, maybe you're planted. Many of the world's greatest transformations happen in solitude. The butterfly must retreat into the cocoon before it learns to fly. The artist must disappear from the crowd to create something beautiful. The saint must withdraw from society to understand the soul. Growth requires retreat. Because in isolation, distractions fade and reflection begins. You see yourself clearly, the flaws, the strengths, the dreams you've been ignoring, the peace you've been missing. Have you noticed that when your phone's battery is low, it charges faster when you put it on airplane mode? That's exactly what happens with you. When you disconnect from the world for a while, when you stop scrolling, stop comparing, stop explaining, you recharge faster. Your spirit gets stronger. Your mind becomes clearer. Your emotions find balance again. But we're so addicted to constant connection that we forget the value of quiet disconnection. In everyday life, we often mistake business for progress. We think if we're surrounded by people, constantly active, constantly visible, then we're doing well. But sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to pause, to sit with your thoughts, to listen to your inner voice, to ask yourself, am I growing? Or am I just going through the motions? Isolation helps you realign your path. When you're always around others, it's easy to absorb their energy, their fears, their opinions. You start carrying emotions that aren't even yours. But when you spend time alone, you return to your original frequency. You start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. And that, my friends, is real growth. I remember meeting a young man once who told me he had lost all his friends because he stopped going out with them every weekend. They called him boring, distant, changed. But when I asked him what he had been doing instead, he smiled and said, "I've been reading, learning, and planning my future." A few years later, he had started his own business. The same people who once mocked his silence now respected his success. He told me, if I hadn't stepped away, I'd still be wasting my time trying to fit in. That's the beauty of isolation. It teaches you to invest in yourself instead of impressing others. Even nature teaches us this lesson. The moon shines brightest when it stands alone in the sky. The ocean's calmest moments happen when there's no storm disturbing it. In the same way, your mind finds its power when the noise quiets down. Sometimes you don't need more people, you need more peace. But yes, isolation can feel uncomfortable at first. We've been taught to associate company with happiness. So when you start spending time alone, it feels strange, even painful. You miss the noise, the validation, the familiar routines. But if you sit with that discomfort long enough, something incredible happens. You start enjoying your own company. You start discovering your strength. You realize that your happiness doesn't depend on who stays or who leaves. It depends on who you become. Growth in isolation is like sharpening a sword in silence. No one sees it, no one claps for it, but when you return, you're stronger, wiser, and more focused. People might ask, "Where have you been?" And your answer will simply be, "Becoming," because that's what isolation gives you, the chance to become. So if you ever find yourself alone, not by choice, but by circumstance, don't see it as rejection. See it as redirection. Maybe the universe has cleared the noise so you can hear the lesson. Maybe it has closed doors so you can find the one that truly leads to your purpose. Maybe it's teaching you to rely on yourself, to build faith that doesn't depend on company. One day, you'll look back and realize that the moments you spent alone were not wasted. They were sacred. They were the times when you rebuilt yourself, when you found your strength, when you discovered peace in your own presence. And when you reemerged from that silence, you weren't the same person. You were better. So embrace your solitude. Don't fear being alone. Fear losing yourself in the crowd. Because sometimes you need to disappear, not to be missed, but to be reborn. And when you return, you'll shine differently. You'll walk with confidence, speak with calm, and live with purpose. That's the power of isolation. It doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. The sun doesn't chase the earth, yet everything revolves around it. It simply shines. It stays steady in its position, doing what it was created to do, radiate light, and everything that needs it comes naturally into its orbit. That, my friends, is the secret to life. You don't need to chase, you just need to shine. In a world obsessed with attention, approval, and validation, people spend their energy chasing others, chasing relationships, opportunities, likes, and recognition. But the truth is, when you know your worth, you stop running after what was never meant to leave. You realize that the right things People, peace, success, and love don't need to be hunted. They're attracted to light. And your light is your energy, your purpose, your authenticity. Think of a magnet. It doesn't chase iron. It simply holds its power, and what's meant to stick, sticks. That's how you should live, grounded, confident, and aware of your value. When you start focusing on being the best version of yourself, instead of running after people's approval, everything begins to change. Have you ever noticed how flowers don't chase bees? They just bloom beautifully and naturally. And the bees come on their own. Why? Because beauty, fragrance, and authenticity always attract. You don't need to prove your worth when you're truly blooming in your own space. The problem is, most people stop blooming because they're too busy begging for sunlight from others. They forget that the light they're searching for already lives within them. In daily life, we often see people exhausting themselves for attention. Someone doesn't text back, and we feel the urge to double text. Someone doesn't appreciate our effort, and we work twice as hard to be noticed. Someone ignores us, and we think we need to do more, be louder, be different. But no, what you need to do is pause, because when you chase, you lose your balance, you give away your power. Sometimes your absence will teach others what your presence never could. It's a powerful truth that life reveals in silence. When you're always available, always giving, always showing up, people can become blind to your value. But when you step back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, something shifts. The same people who once overlooked your efforts begin to notice the emptiness your absence leaves behind. It's not revenge, it's revelation. We often think love and kindness mean constant presence. We think the more we give, the more people will appreciate us. But in reality, when we overgive, others begin to assume that our energy is endless. They forget that the smiles we share come from a heart that also needs care, that the help we offer comes from time we could be using for ourselves. So, when you decide to step back, it's not cruelty, it's clarity. You're reminding the world that your presence is a privilege, not a guarantee. Imagine this. You have a friend who always helps you move, always listens when you're down, always answers the phone no matter the time. One day that friend doesn't answer. You wait, and the silence feels strange. Suddenly, you realize how much you've relied on their support, how much lighter they've made your days. That feeling, the quiet void of their absence, is the teacher. It teaches gratitude, it teaches awareness, because sometimes people don't recognize warmth until it's gone. We see this everywhere in daily life. Parents who work tirelessly for their children often go unnoticed. Their sacrifices blend into routine. Then one day, when a parent falls sick or steps away for a while, the family feels the difference. The unspoken love that was holding everything together becomes visible. The absence reveals what presence had hidden. It's not that the parent wasn't valued, it's that their constant availability made their effort invisible. There's an old saying, familiarity breeds blindness, not hatred, not indifference, just blindness. When something or someone is always there, the mind stops noticing. That's why sunsets, which happen every day, are often ignored until we finally stop one evening to watch and realize how beautiful they've always been. In the same way, your absence reminds others of your beauty, your importance, your contribution. But let's be honest, it's not easy to pull back. The fear of being forgotten keeps many people trapped in one-sided relationships. You worry, if I stop reaching out, will they stop caring? If I stop giving, will they still remember me? And that's exactly the lesson. If someone only remembers you when you're giving, they were never truly seeing you. Real connections survive distance. Real appreciation grows in absence. Those who value you will reach out even when you go quiet. Those who don't were never really there. Think about it like music. The pauses between the notes make the melody beautiful. If a song had no pauses, no silence, just endless sound, it would be noise, not music. Your absence is that pause. It gives meaning to your presence. It makes people stop, reflect, and realize the rhythm you brought to their lives. I once spoke to a woman who told me she was tired of always being the one who checked in on her friends. She said, "If I stop calling, no one calls me." So she decided to stop for a while. Weeks passed, and only one person reached out. At first, I felt hurt, she said, but then I realized that those who care will always find their way. I was just clearing space for genuine connections. Her absence didn't just teach her friends, it taught her. It showed her who truly valued her. Your absence is not just a message to others, it's medicine for you. When you step away, you get time to breathe, to refocus, to remember your own worth outside of how others perceive you. You begin to realize that your value doesn't decrease when others fail to notice it. You start healing from the need to be constantly seen. You start valuing your energy as something sacred, not something to be spent on everyone. Even in work, this truth applies. There are employees who work overtime, take on extra tasks, and never say no. Over time, that effort becomes expected. Then one day, when they take a break or leave, their workplace feels the weight of their absence. Projects slow down, deadlines stretch, and suddenly, everyone realizes how much that one person contributed. The absence becomes a silent lesson in gratitude. Life has a rhythm of giving and withdrawing, of showing up and stepping back. Trees don't bear fruit all year. They rest, they shed, they regenerate, and when the season returns, they give again, but stronger, fuller, richer. You are no different. If you never rest, never retreat, you'll eventually lose your ability to give beautifully. Your absence is the season where you recharge. But remember, the goal is not to disappear forever or to teach anyone a harsh lesson. The goal is to create balance, to remind both yourself and others that your presence has weight. You deserve appreciation, not expectation. You deserve reciprocity, not routine. Sometimes when you walk away, people might misunderstand you. They might think you've changed or that you become distant. But that's okay. People often confuse peace for pride and boundaries for coldness. You don't need to explain your silence. Let time do that for you. When they feel your absence, when they see how life looks without your laughter, your encouragement, your love, they'll understand. And that understanding will mean more than any words ever could. One day, those who took you for granted will remember the small things. The way you listened without judgment, the way you smiled even on bad days, the way your presence made life lighter, and they'll miss it. But by then, you'll have learned that your value was never dependent on their recognition. it was always within you. So don't be afraid to take that step back. Let your silence speak. Let your distance do the teaching, because sometimes your absence will echo louder than your words ever did. And in that space, both you and others will finally see the truth. Your worth was never in how much you gave, but in who you are when you stop giving.